Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, March 27th, 2019 to order. Can we have a roll call, please, Mr. Alexandrovich?
Yes. Mrs. Witkowski.
Here.
Mr. Nielsen.
Here.
Mrs. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mrs. Larson.
Here.
I am here, and Mr. Gamble is excused.
Thank you. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For item 3, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda, but first I'm asking the board to approve the agenda with moving item 9A, Personnel and Policy 5211, to immediately follow item 8A, Technology Report, so that Ms. Zielinski can do that since she's here giving the technology report and won't have to sit through the board evaluation. So I'm looking for that motion.
So moved.
A motion by
You just
Mr.
did-
Nielsen.
What, can you say that again?
Okay, I'm just asking to move up item 9A, Personnel and Policy, to directly follow 8A, Information and Technology Report, so that Ms. Zielinski
Gotcha.
is here to answer questions.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so we had a motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is community comment. We allow up to 15 minutes of community comment.
Did we approve the agenda also?
We just did.
Oh, because I thought we were just approving the 8A, 9A thing.
No,
That's
that was
the
approving the
agenda.
agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone in the audience like to make any community comment this evening? Any comment? All right, hearing none. We will move on to the consent agenda, item 5. Would any board member like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Larson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is school board announcements. Do we have any announcements tonight?
Just a couple of Education Foundation events coming up. Trivia night is April 5th. It's a Friday night. Are you guys got a team? No? Okay. Maybe. We could think about a team. And it's from 6 to 10. And also April 13th is the consignment sale. And there are also four scholarships being offered. And if you know anybody that's looking for money, they can check those out.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
Where's the trivia night?
You know, I'm not sure.
I think it's at 3 Sellers.
Yes, you're right, it is.
Thank you. Item 7, school board calendar. We have a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, April 10th, 2019, here at the Education and Community Center at 6 o'clock p.m. And a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, April 24th, here at the ECC at 6 o'clock p.m. Item 8, reports and presentations and other school board business. Item 8A, information and technology report. Ms. Zielinski.
Okay.
You need to plug the sound in.
Yes, it's not even come up my screen. All right, that's all right. All right, then we have the technology ready, right? That's always the first challenge when it comes to giving a technology report, so.
You're still plugging in, not wireless, huh?
Luann, we're going to ask that you use the microphone because we have someone in the audience who...
Sure. Scooch over that way.
Or you can move it where you need it. Thank you.
How's that? Is that better? Okay, great. Thanks for having me tonight to share an update on things that are happening in the technology department. Tonight's report covers really kind of three areas. It's not only the technical side, the IT area, that infrastructure and those types of things, as well as our instructional technology. So as we know, we have a couple of system specialists who also assist us with helping teachers use technology in the classroom, and also library media. We did a report last year, and you guys approved a library media plan, and just give you some updates on some of those goals and some of the accomplishments that we've had in that arena. So, and as always, as we think about technology in our schools, it's really about having the right tool for the right purpose, and it's something that we use with our one-to-one devices as well as others for a lot of different learning activities, from writing and opportunities to have access to information and opportunities to do things that we otherwise could not have done if we didn't have those tools in place. So some of the things that I'm going to share with you tonight are some of the infrastructure pieces that are necessary to make that all happen, as well as some of the activities that are currently happening in the classroom. The first area is the technical side, which I know a lot of you get lost in my jargon, so I apologize if everything isn't quite in layman's terms. But you know, we have built some fiber to get us connected to WISCnet, which is one of the biggest providers for internet service across the state. And I'm finally excited, after about a 1.5-year process, that we have a date on the calendar to cut over to that service on April 17th. That service will give us almost 4 times the bandwidth of what we currently have, or sorry, 20 times the bandwidth at about half the cost. So we're really super excited to get connected into that larger statewide system and save money and get us access to more bandwidth. Related to that, we're also doing some infrastructure upgrades. We will be putting in some new access points at the new middle school and matching that with replacing out access points at the high school, and then shifting those access points down to the elementary school to maximize our resources. The new technology out for wireless infrastructure gives us the ability for about 4 times the bandwidth speed that we currently have, and it's got some new technology, without getting too technical, that allows what they call multi-user versus single user. So it's supposed to speed up how quickly and how many devices that we can have on in a classroom. We have 30 students with a device connected. It gets pretty jumbled pretty quickly when they're trying to access certain resources, videos, and other assignments and projects that they're working on in the classroom.
Do you want questions as you go, or afterwards?
No, just hold up to the end, is that okay? I don't, do you?
Just a quick question.
What's your preference?
But, well,
I think it's relevant right now. It might get lost right away.
Sure, go ahead,
I just want to
Linda.
know if the access, the improvement is for every school, because, you know, they're not all in the same location. Is that 20 times apply to every school?
Yes, so that is our connection from here, because everything from all the buildings come into here. We're the central wheel, if you will, a spoken wheel concept, so we're the middle of that, and then it goes out from here. So it's all that traffic is converging to the ECC and then going out, which is why that's where we need the biggest bandwidth component. So yes, it impacts, everybody's going to get faster.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I wanted to
Simply put, everyone gets faster.
Because the kids aren't here, they're out there, so.
Right. So, the other thing I talked a little bit about was kind of finding that, what we call the least common denominator, or that choking point, if you will. Where do we have the, as you think about this computer going through the cables and through different pieces of equipment, where is our bottleneck? Where do we go from, let's say, an 8-lane highway down to a 1-lane bridge, maybe back out to a 4-lane highway, maybe down to a 1-lane bridge? You're always looking for those 1-lane bridges, and that's going to be where we make our next changes in terms of infrastructure. So we are working, the wireless access points being one part of that, and we'll be looking at doing some switch upgrades here at the ECC, where everything is, again, converging back to, again, be able to accommodate those least common denominators. So as you open up the internet, you're going to find newer choking points, if you will, that's going to restrict information getting out, or for the end user, it's going to feel like it's slow. That's what they will experience if we don't continue to kind of keep those up to the standards that we need them to be at, to allow for those multiple students to be connected at the same time. The last thing kind of related to the technical side is really more of a merger of technical, instructional, and library media. As we're working on coherence planning and goals, our technology team is also working on some improvement goals. And one of those improvement goals we identified was being better able to serve our end users, both in terms of technical support, but also in providing them with the access to the resources they need to maybe answer some of their own questions, so they don't have to be dependent on us for those technical needs or user needs. Not that we don't want to be there to help them, but looking for a better way for us to work together as a team. So Jill Pogle is our library media system specialist, our two information technology system specialists, and my IT team have been meeting since this closer to the start of the school year, and looking to kind of merge our warehouse that we use for all of our resources for teachers, kind of the how-to guides, the how to troubleshoot things, and our help desk software, and merge them into one big knowledge base where there'll be kind of a one-stop shop for our users. And we're hoping to launch that in April here. We should have our content and things kind of ready to go, at least a starting point, that we could switch them over to that. It's not really switching over to the same system, it's just merging that content together into our existing system. The next part of the report talks a little bit more on the instructional and the library media side, and just to kind of review with all of you, the instructional technology coaches that we have in the districts really are focusing on 3 areas. They're supporting teachers who are teaching in an online or what we call enriched virtual class, that being classes where they're still meeting face-to-face with students, but are using a tool called Buzz to be able to create some dynamic interactions with students, even though they're still meeting face-to-face, putting content and other interactive modules together for the students. They are also my support team for helping with any new technologies, so as we TV display over there, I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening with some of the new technologies we're trying out this year, as well as expanding what we already are doing. So expanding the current good work that's already happening, some of the tools that we're using, such as WeVideo, where students are creating their own videos, and expanding that as students are using that as a tool to demonstrate knowledge of certain content area. One of those pieces that we're also working on is what we're, our content filter. So that's the software that we use to block kids from going places we don't want them to go. Has a feature built into it that gives teachers some accessibility to some what I would call classroom management tools. So today's kids get distracted pretty easily with their devices sometimes in front of them. And so this tool gives the teachers the ability to see what's on all the Chromebook screens of the kids in their classroom at that time, so make sure they can kind of, besides walking around the room, they can also still kind of glance through and see that if they're on task where they should be. We can lock the screens temporarily if they want them eyes up front, or we tell them to 45 it. There's different strategies, so it's just another tool that we are working through. It's not exactly perfect yet, so we haven't extended it beyond the teachers who are currently piloting it, which are our technology go-to teachers. We have 2 in every building, and they've been kind of our lead on this to work through, make sure everything is the way we would like it, and then hopes to expand that to other teachers as an opportunity this fall. As you know, we've been looking at large displays for the new middle school. You saw that in one of the model classrooms, and I'm going to share just a little bit about right over winter break. We had an opportunity to get some of those large displays in our elementary classrooms, as well as 5 at the middle school that they're rotating through classrooms every month. They're to start working with the displays and some of the technology we are hoping to put in the new middle school besides the display. So the display will be something that we would eventually down the road replace smart boards, which are no longer supported. They're over 10, 12 years old, and the company no longer supports them. It's hard to believe that smart boards are that old already. But we'd be looking for an option to replace both the smart board and the projection units with a brighter, bigger, better image that will meet our needs. And I've got just a little video clip here, if she wants to cue it up, that we captured some images, and it's literally less than 2 minutes. We captured some images of just how the teachers are currently using the displays in the classroom. So you're going to really see multiple different things, and I could talk about them after you see the captions. So let me see how we're doing here from So you saw some of the examples, and we're really trying out really about 4 different things at this point in time. One is exact replacement model, what we have. You physically, just like I am, you cable in. Now you just have it going to a TV display versus a projection unit, although you see the difference in vibrancy in terms of the color. We had to turn the lights off in here. You could barely see that, and when you see Dr. Miller using the display later today, you're going to see just how bright and how clear the new technologies is with the TV. So when you have a large classroom and then you're sitting close to the back, you're going to be able to see that more easily. So that's one piece. The second piece we're trying out is some wireless technology. So if you think Apple TV at home or a Chromecast at home, if you have something of that sort, those are very specific to Apple or very specific to Chrome. So we are piloting a product called AirTame, and there's other brands out there, to cast wirelessly from any device. So it doesn't matter if the students are on their Chromebook, a teacher's on their MacBook, I'm on my Windows machine, or they're on an Android tablet, they can wirelessly project from their display to the TV. What we're finding is it's great, except video is a little lagging. The technology is not quite there always to cast video and or audio, depending on the length of it and what it is. So we're working through that with the company. They're saying it should work, work the way it should. They've got some new software, so that's something we're continuing to watch. And then the last aspect that we're adding to it, if you think back to the smart board being a touch interactive, we have touchscreen Chromebooks, as you saw in the video, so that the teacher can now move around the class. They're not tethered to the screen, or the students aren't tethered to the front of the room. They could walk around. They could hand that touchscreen Chromebook to a student. The student could interact, or the teacher could interact. So those are some of the things that we are trying, and I'm hoping to have a solid solution in place that we can put some of that technology in the new Forest Park when it opens in the fall. However, if we're finding that we still have some lagginess, we'll always go back to the cabled connection that we know is going to be a solid solution that works for us until the technology gets there, where we can do that wireless option for the classrooms. I just want to touch on the last thing related to instructional technology before I jump into library media around expanding some of the existing technologies. And I just brought up, I'm really proud of a group of high school teachers who have taken it upon themselves to want to get to know some of the Google products a little more in depth and become a little more solidified. So there's a team of about 25 cohort teachers who have decided to work through the Google Certified Teacher or Google Certified Educator online modules, and then if they want, they can take the test at the end and get their certification. Similar to what Apple has done with their Distinguished Educator program and others. It's just one way for them to gain more insight, more in-depth insight, and a process for them to get better at using some of those Google tools. Now into library media, there were 2 goal areas that we presented to you last year. Related to our library plan. One was about increasing our access to ebooks for students, and the second was building more a partnership or a more comprehensive partnership with our public library. And I'm excited to say that when we started ebook circulation a year ago, we had about 100 books that went out for distribution, if you will, and I had Jill run the report for January, and there was like 1,000 books. So students are loving it. They are checking them out. They're putting requests into her. Can you get this ebook? Sometimes the ebooks come out faster than the paperback books or the hard copy books, and they're excited to get their hands on them. We also joined a consortium in the state that allows us to not only either books that we've purchased, but books we have access to through that consortium. So that also expands our availability of the various books to students. In addition to that, Jill Poglace is our library systems specialist, and she also is sitting on the public library strategic plan. So she is working with them on their strategic planning that they are doing. She meets with the youth staff on a quarterly basis, and there is constant back and forth, her sharing with what upcoming maybe content units the high school might be doing research on, and them sharing opportunities at the public library that we can promote through our schools. And they are telling her that their numbers in their youth programs have gone up, and they're attributing that to the partnership and us being able to advertise and communicate some of those programs to our students through the schools. The last area, I won't go into a lot of detail except maybe the last one here, but as anything that plugs in and turns on, IT gets involved with. So the last bullets are just kind of a list of other projects that we have been involved with. With the receiving of the safety grant, there's been a lot of technology components that went along with that, with our security cameras, with our door access card control systems, Stop It online, tip line, et cetera. So we've been very intricately involved with some of those different projects along the way as well this year. And the last one I want to just highlight is the digital signage piece. One of the decisions we made in the construction or the design of Forest Park would be to, I would say, go away from the bulletin board, so to speak, but to have digital signage as an option there. But we really looked at it as multifunction. The displays that we will have, one in the vestibule, a few in the cafeteria, and then some by the one down by the event entrance, will really serve multiple purposes. It will be able to we will be able to put digital signage content on it. We will also be able to, somebody will be able to walk up and kind of plug into the jack below it and use it as a collaborative tool for small group collaboration, both students and others outside of the school day. And lastly, we will be doing our menuing boards for lunchtime. They have to have certain criteria up. They manually write it on a dry erase board marker right now. And somebody has to take the time to, and that's detail, I was surprised. So we're starting to work through what we can do to automate that for them because of the rotating schedule that they usually use for their lunch program. We've discovered that we're going to be able to pull it from a system that they already are using, which is NutriSlice, and be able to display what's in NutriSlice on those screens during those hours that lunch is in session. So we're working toward those, and so knowing that that was our ultimate goal, I said, let's not wait until Forest Park opens to figure this all out. We had an opportunity or an interest at the high school on wanting to, it's one of their goals to do a Sabre Business Alliance partners with their logos and some of those pieces as a display wall, and the thought was maybe we could use this as an opportunity to try out the digital signage software to be a starting point for that. So if you get a chance to pop in over the high school in the main commons area, the TV is up, the content is there. Literally, Christy and I got trained today, so we're still working through it, but there is content there, at least for now, and we'll continue to add content and change that out to promote the district, to have some real-time communications. We can schedule it so there's different content on there in the evenings when we've got our public in there for our rec programs and some of those pieces versus during the school day when our primary audience may be students or other visitors to our buildings. So we're excited to work through those details and then be able to expand that to the new middle school when it opens in the fall. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
So the library, the electronic books, how does that work with the classroom libraries? Because maybe each classroom has a library of real books, or does that integrate with the?
They're really separate in terms of, we have certain classroom sets of books that we need for various literacy lessons and reading levels for certain books, those types of things, although I will say I know Jill is working with the high school English department to talk about some of the books that they have for required reading in some of their English language arts classes, about the opportunity for students to read the digital versions of that. They can take notes in it. There's some tools and things that they have available now that is similar to highlighting, if you will, and some of those other note-taking strategies that we use with kids.
Is there a certain grade level that they were exposed to that, or whenever kids are interested, or how do we
I don't know.
introduce?
Yeah, so I know the aides in the library have done little mini lessons with kids in terms of how do they go about checking out an ebook. I don't know exactly what age group that we are starting that at. But all kids K-12 have access. There's no age restriction on checking out an ebook. And if she's got we have books at all age groups, all levels.
Ebooks.
Ebooks.
Can I ask another question? Can you give us just a little bit of what the Google Certified Educator, what kind of skills are they learning in that?
I
What are you
personally
certified to do?
have never taken it, so I can give you it's the Google tool, so it's everything from like Google blogging, to Google Docs, to forums, to spreadsheets. It's all of the different Google app suites and taking an in-depth look, but not just learning them to, here's a spreadsheet and here's how you put content in it, but then the instructional pieces of how you can use it in the classroom as well.
Is this tied to any professional development plans that, or goals that the district has regarding teachers? Or is it all teacher-driven?
This is teacher-driven.
Teacher-driven. And, okay, ask one more. Then the signage, just electronic signage. Are we connecting it, I kind of see it as a, kind of almost like the website, but it's the website in the, you know, right there in front of you as opposed to, or is there any connection between the website information, content, and what you expect to, and who controls that content? Is it going to be more efficient, or how do you manage that, all those additional signage things?
We're in the process of piloting that and working through those details. So really, the high school will be the one in control of the high school content based on what their needs are and for the purposes of the audiences that they have coming into the high school currently. We will be training soon one of the office assistants in the office to be able to change out that content.
So it's at the school level, it sounds like.
And I guess the other magical thing about technology is it is web-based, so if Christy has something that she wants to push out to all of the displays, or just to one display, or to 10 out of the 15 displays, however many we end up with, we will have the ability to do that as well.
Can this display be on the website too?
Right now, it is not going to be available on the website. There's not the software, the digital signage software doesn't have the ability to publish the content from the displays to the website
Right now?
currently, correct.
If it did, would you?
If there was a need or a purpose,
I mean, all the
Good.
displays are going to be school-specific. So I don't know.
and I would just say most of the content, not maybe most of it, some of the content on there, if it's relevant to our public and our community that our website is focusing toward, then that might be something that we would, if that's our audience, the content may be in both places.
The displays will be used for specific things. For example, the lineup of the bus routes, so that's not something you want to push out to the website.
Well, I'm looking at the example that you provide in your report,
Yeah.
as far as what games are coming up, that's certainly is easier for me to see what's going on versus looking through the website to see
Right.
what the schedule is. It looked more user-friendly to me than what the website was like.
Yeah, and that is integrated, so that's actually polling content. We already put that content in our Google Calendar, as well as the athletic events are in our school. Those pull into our website, and it's pulling into this feed, so we're not re-entering that information. It just happens to be that this is how it pulls it in and displays it versus maybe in some other format that you're used to looking at it in.
So
But
there's
each,
one
but
similar-
each school can make that site-specific then?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So there's one like this in the high school, in the commons area, you're saying, the main? So, like in the Sabre Center, there's a lot of different monitors there too. Those the same, tied in with the same type of,
Not yet. That has
Yeah.
been part of our conversation. Right now, that's tied into the theater system, so when there's a performance going on stage, they can have the performance out on those displays. That doesn't mean that we can't add this piece to it. It's just currently, it's not set up that way.
And I know that there was a request for a video display that the athletic director requested, and the Education Foundation funded. Are you aware of that multi-display thing?
That was not video, those are photos.
Was there photos? Is it, so it's different technology, or?
It's not technology at all. It's
Ah.
really just large photos that are on large squares that can be interchanged.
Just stays there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not technology.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this, and I guess I would like to know, and I don't expect you to have any answer right now, but we approved the technology budget, which your area provides a summary of what you're going to purchase, which all of this was in there, in the summary. And then everything is listed tonight in your report, but as a board member who has to approve the budget, and then just keeping a finger on the pulse of technology and just what's going on with technology, I really have a desire to want to know what the cost of some of these items are, to help me in approving the budget, because I know they're expensive, and I know how technology changes, every few months, but I'm just clueless as to what do these TVs cost, and, expanding the existing technologies and the relays and things like that. So I don't know where it would be a good idea to put those costs, whether it's in a report or expanded in the budget, and how the entire board feels. Are you interested in knowing?
I was going to ask a question similar to that. I
Okay.
was just going to ask, how are you within your budget this year, and how is that projected to look? And then the second part of the question is, what is your weakest link or your Achilles heel as far as infrastructure that you see going forward?
Sure. So, yes, we're within budget. That is something that we've always been able to keep within that dollar amount. So as we're doing these new technologies or making those changes, it's something I forecast out for, 2 to 3 years. We kind of know where sometimes things come up that we don't anticipate, but for the most part, what's that replacement cycle for devices? I'll be honest, like something with the smart boards and projection units, they've just been functioning for so long, but when Smart decided to no longer support them, then we're like, we really need to do something, or we're gonna not have the technology we need in the classroom, and it's when it breaks. So always looking to make sure that we're one step ahead of that, and then watching the market and seeing where things are at, so that we don't go out of support on most of the technologies. Generally speaking, our replacement plan is somewhere between 3 to 5 years. Most of it hits that 5-year mark. So sometimes our really heavy hitting, maybe server pieces as a real core to some of the things that we're doing, might be closer to a 4-year replacement cycle. So that's, some businesses, it's every couple of years. So it really kind of depends. I wouldn't say we're the first to go. We aren't always the last either, to make sure that we don't run into those technical issues. And then your second question was?
Achilles
What-
was-
what
The
do you-
Achilles
yeah,
heel, right now, our Achilles heel is 2 things. It's our content filter, so the device that filters and blocks websites for kids. Everything that comes in and out of the district has to go through that device. So that's one. The second is our firewall. So those two.
I was going to ask your virus
And I did look
firewall.
into maybe getting a bigger, better firewall, and I saw the price tag on it, and I thought we could just live with what we have. It was pretty pricey to jump to that next level to get there. So we're gonna probably try to double up. We could do some things to get part of the way there. We're just not gonna be able to get to the 10 gig is where we're making connectivity in other parts of the district.
Can I just ask a quick question? How much does that cost?
Those displays are hitting, Jim, do you remember exactly? I
I
think
mean, I
they
don't
were-
need, the cents, okay? I'll go the nearest
They're
$100.
hitting right around 2,600?
Yeah, I think so.
I also know that technology is moving to the cloud. It's our major decision where I work. How's the cloud going to impact that? And you mentioned we have servers, and you mentioned the big spoke thing. So apparently we are accessing the cloud. How does that cloud technology impact us in the future? Are we moving? I don't even know how much we have in the cloud versus how much we have on servers. Do you have a split there, and is that where you want to be, or we're going to be moving more to the cloud?
I would say over the last 5 years, we host less and less servers here internally and more in a hosted environment. There's very few servers that we house here. We still need servers for other infrastructure pieces, for like a server for the wireless access points, those types of things. But in terms of storing our files or storing our
Applications.
software packages, some of those things, no longer, that's all cloud-based or hosted by the vendor. So, for example, Skyward that we use for our financials and HR systems, we don't have a server physically here. It's hosted by Skyward, those types of things. So we've moved more in those directions. Our busing software is hosted by the busing vendor, those types of things.
So your structure is set. What you have in the cloud will stay in the cloud, and there's not really anything currently on servers that you see going to the cloud. Is it driven by software, or is it driven, or do we drive that?
That's my application.
Yeah, it's a combination. It depends on one combination of us wanting to manage and control it and how much of that we want to let go to the vendors to do. We still host PowerSchool here because we have a lot of integrations and need a lot of connectivity, and it could be hosted elsewhere if we decide at some point we want to go down that path.
And when we go to the cloud, does some of those security concerns and all that also, that becomes their responsibility?
It becomes their responsibility, but it becomes our responsibility to make sure that our service agreements with them, that they are
Right.
meeting the standards and the level of security that we want them to have on those systems.
And you're comfortable with that? Because you mentioned security was kind of your concern, but you're right, it's really a function of those contracts. And we haven't had any issues. I mean, I haven't heard anything in the news.
That's a good thing, though. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on technology report? Okay, thank you. And then next, we'll move on then to item 9A, the personnel and policy, policy 5211, student acceptable use of technology. Mr. Nielsen.
Thank you. This policy is before us tonight due to the last time it was reviewed. It was recommended that there were to be no changes made. So, with that, I'll move to accept policy 5211 as is.
So we have a motion by Mr. Nielsen. It's not accepting, it's just
Oh, we are using the term reconfirming.
reconfirming.
I'd like to
Yeah.
reconfirm policy 5211.
Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen to reconfirm policy 5211. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Larson. Any discussion?
I just want to, I see that it was revised in 2010, but the rules, though, were revised just this year, right? It says March 2018,
That would be,
or last year.
March 13th, yeah, a year ago.
yeah.
Those don't come to the board, the rules.
Can you just share what was changed?
I don't remember. I'm sure we had a discussion about something at that time when we felt it was necessary. I'd have to look back. I could let you know, but.
You can just let me know.
Yeah, I don't remember, but Luann and I meet regularly, and we discuss, anything that needs to change in here and make those changes in the rules. I don't know, do you recall? I'm not certain. The last thing that we changed in the policy.
I don't remember exactly, but I do know we changed something with it related to the last paragraph, and it had to do with permission for children under the age of 13 or of a minor child to be able to access certain websites and certain content under the age of, for example, if a website says in order to use this video production software, you have to be 13 years old or older, then we have some children who are under that age, and this, we made some adjustments there about the district having parent permission to do such for educational purposes, those types of things. So it was that last paragraph. As well as the remote tracking, that was another piece of that last paragraph as it related to the Chromebooks, because the Chromebooks can come down home with them, and sometimes they get lost or misplaced. We have the ability now to be able to, like your phone, a GPS tracker to turn on if there's still power to it, and be able to help the students find a lost device. So that was another piece that we changed.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll move back to item 8B under reports and presentations, and that's the board self-evaluation discussion. And there are hard copies in front of you. Are there hard hard copies?
I got one here.
Okay. I already have it here, it's just mixed in. Okay, I do have it. Here it is. Okay. So I don't know that we need to go through every comment, but the first standard was governance. And you see that we did well on that one with 71.4%, saying we consistently met all of the indicators. So going to page 2. I think this one had the most, I don't know about you, the most interesting responses. Probably something we can work on with a goal at our retreat. Does anyone have any comments on any of the responses? It's clearly one of the responses that came up most of the time, not came up several times, was that we need to stay on track during the meeting on items that want to be discussed by all board members. So does anyone want to talk about that?
But I struggled with the one where it said, the board discusses only those topics that the majority of board members wish to take up. And I was the one who wrote, no, we go over an agenda. I never vote on what we're going to discuss at the next meeting. Never discuss in advance. We go over what's presented in the agenda. Matter of fact, I think that one should be deleted from there.
From the standards?
Yeah. We don't discuss only those topics the majority members wish to take up.
We should discuss any item that a board member wants to take up.
But we do, you can't discuss it at the meeting unless it's on the agenda. So we would need to go to Janet and have, if I brought something to Janet and Judy and said, could we have this on the agenda? And they might go, sure. That doesn't mean everybody else agrees with me.
No, true. I agree. I totally agree with that.
Did you?
But I know you're completely open to things hitting the agenda. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it's not, this kind of says, we do this in advance. We know what's coming up, what the board wishes to take up. No, we get to go over what's on the agenda, and we're
I think you're
restricted
reading-
to that
I think
agenda.
you're reading too much into it. It's not.
I always do
I
that.
don't think it's, I don't think it's about the agenda, necessarily about the agenda. It's about going off topic on items that aren't on the agenda, or items that possibly the board wouldn't be interested in taking up as a board.
Yeah.
You have an example?
Yeah.
'Cause I think I struggled with that same point last time we did this.
Because this isn't just something for our board, this is a general statement for all boards.
Right. But we're evaluating
Governance.
our board.
Right.
We're evaluating our performance.
As a governing body, and it's as a body, this is not about the, creating the agenda. This is about,
Right. But aren't we restricted to the agenda? I mean, if we have something that comes up, a community comment, and it's really important, and we go, we can't discuss it, it's not on the agenda. So, I mean, the agenda really dictates what we talk
well,
about
that's not the
tonight.
only reason we don't discuss community comment, because it's not on the agenda. It's it's because of open meetings laws.
Would-
Because you have
Which
to,
is why you have the agenda.
Right, which is why you have the agenda, right.
I think this one kind of says what you're saying, Alan. It just doesn't mention agenda. So the board discusses topics that they want to discuss, and those are on the agenda.
But
When-
it
when
also
you
says
wanna discuss
the
something-
majority of the board wants to discuss.
When the majority of the board wants to discuss something, it goes on the agenda, and that's when the board discusses it. So this kind of says the same thing that you're saying. We don't discuss it unless it's on the agenda, and it's not on the agenda unless we want to discuss it. It's kind of a circle. But I think it says the same thing you're trying to say, it just says it in a different way, in a more broad way, I think.
Although it's on this list as a focus to improve government, as an area that we have to improve on. That's where I'm confused.
I believe this came from the keywords of school boards, so this comes from WASB. Am I correct?
from the National School Board
Right.
Association.
Right.
I don't think this is a list of things that we're supposed to improve on. It's a list of indicators that we can use as a benchmark to grade our government, us in the area of governance.
Except that if you turn the page and comments, could focus on to improve. It's kind of brought up.
Oh, I
What?
see. I was talking.
I'll give you an example then. You asked for an example.
Okay, good, thank you.
But I have to mention names, and we're supposed to go on board, but, okay, so tonight I brought up about the budget, and I said, I'd like to hear what the whole board thinks. And Mr. Lewis said he had a little interest in something and asked some questions, but there was no other discussion from the board to talk about what I brought up about, possibly asking that this report have more information about the budget in it, or adding something to the budget. So we didn't discuss it. So obviously, the majority of the board wasn't interested in that topic. But I'm going to bring up Mrs. Witkowski, bringing up when we bring up a plan, the plan issue, that going on, we had an agenda item, but she wanted to bring up going further on a plan that wasn't really part of the agenda. And again, the rest of the board didn't have an interest in that. So, but maybe going on a little further and a little further in time than was necessary when we didn't really have that as an agenda item. I think that's what this is trying to say.
Okay.
If the whole board doesn't want to take something up, don't spend so much time on it, you have to speak up and say, yeah, I'm interested in that, or I want to make a motion to
All
do
right,
that.
I'm going to make a suggestion. Number 2, area 2, number 2. I wrote that. As a group, we need to keep discussions moving and end with a clear result or action.
You
Now,
can't.
and I'm going to mention names. As president, when we have a discussion like that, where Linda brings something up, or I ask a question, or anybody does for that matter, the discussion should always end with an action or a conclusion. And a lot of times, we don't do that. We just drop it, just like your discussion about the budget tonight. We didn't go anywhere with it. So what should happen, put the onus on our president, any one of us could do it, but what we should do then is make a statement. Do we want to add this as an agenda item for next meeting? Or are we satisfied with the result and the answer that we received? Or, what should we do with it? And Linda has asked, and I put Jim on the spot a couple times in other board meetings, Jim, I'd like to see a plan, and, and she's pressed for, some dollar numbers or something like that, but then we just always seem to drop it, and nothing happens.
That's because-
When a board member makes a request.
One board member can't make a request.
No.
It's- But you, that's when we say the whole
Okay.
board.
But then you can say, or any one of us board members can say, can we put this on the agenda for next week and discuss it further? That's what our board meetings are for.
No, but that's why, at that time, that's why I said it was, if it's during an agenda topic item, then I say, does anyone want to make a motion? If it's during a topic, you can make a motion. And if no board member makes a motion, or a board member makes a motion and doesn't second it, it doesn't get seconded, then that's it.
Are we suggesting that motion should be, we'd like to add that to a future agenda item? Because your comment about the budget, I am interested in that, but it just
I
didn't
would be
seem-
too, to
but
see
it
more
didn't
detail.
Well, that
seem-
could have been
but
brought
it
up right
wasn't-
now.
It seemed the purpose was to hear the report, not discuss what the report, you know, it
But
didn't
if you
seem-
don't do that action now, it doesn't get done.
Well, then, maybe we're confused as what the process is to get more detail on the IT budget. Do we just ask her for more detail as an individual and get supplied more detail? Or is that something we need to do as a board for her next report? Or do we say, okay, can you report that in 3 weeks, what your budget looks like for the remainder of the year and next year?
No, it's something we need to do as a board. So now we know we have something to talk about, maybe at our retreat, or,
Can we talk about it now?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what this is for.
well, no, this, I mean.
We're
for a
reviewing
For a
our-
resolution, no, that's not what this is for. This is to go over this, but we know we have an issue that we need to bring up. And it's,
And how would you,
Okay, so how are we going to resolve this discussion, and how are we going to bring this up?
because I also asked, yeah, I think there needs to be some more data behind the report. And I shared it with Judy in advance, but I didn't press it tonight, but yeah, I think there's more that we need to know. But unless we provide some direction on what we want to see, we're going to get the same report again. We're going to get the same report every year. It's a little story, but it's not enough data, to your point. It's missing, you know. Where are we going? How much are we spending? Missing that. And I don't know how
well, that's
we
what,
communicate that to,
that's what this means then. We need, the whole board, or the majority of the board has to want to,
ask for that collectively?
yes, or anything.
And we do
But
that,
when you say a majority of the board has to ask for something, shouldn't it be anyone on the board?
No. You can ask at a meeting and have the collective board, because we work as a body.
And, you know, with all due respect, you know, there could be a lot of requests that would put a lot of extra work.
No, and I'm all for minimizing
Yeah.
work. I don't,
Yeah.
one of my pet peeves in business was those crazy requests, and then they would get the report, and then it would go like this and sit, you know, and you spent 3 weeks working on it, and then they didn't use it. I'm very sensitive to that.
So I think that as a body, there'd have to be a majority of the board members who would want something like that, because it would engage the leadership team with doing some additional work. And if you think of it, you know, in terms of, we've had a very stable board, very good people, reasonable, but you could have a board member who could come to the table and say, I want year-round school on the agenda for discussion, you know? The majority of the board has to say, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, that's not a good idea, because otherwise, we would be doing a lot of things that would just be unnecessary in terms of how we'd be spending our time.
So you're saying, in order to get it on the agenda, it has to be a board decision?
Well,
Well,
so
How do
I think
a
that-
lot of these things get on our agenda?
So that a
that-
number of things.
That I've never decided anything on.
They're yearly,
Right.
they're a rotation of yearly
Okay.
decisions that,
Policy work, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
operational pieces that the board should be informed of, approvals that the board has to make. That's what the agenda's built on. But a topic like year-round school, for example, that someone has an interest in, or someone from the community has an interest in, you know, I think those are the kinds of things that the board as a whole has to say, yeah, let's spend some time talking about that. So I'm just, it's not as cut and dry, and I do think during a retreat, we could sort some of this out a little better and make sure that there's some clarity around that, and how the agenda's built, and how items get on the agenda. But certainly what I'm hearing tonight is, you know, if something comes up in tonight or the next meeting, and someone at the table thinks it's something that should happen, other board members should speak up. And then, when the majority of the board members speak up, then it's something that the administration would have to take on and provide.
Maybe then we as board members need to be a little more vocal if we have something we would like on the agenda to maybe address and involve the other board members.
Correct.
And that's,
Correct.
and ask the question right then and there if it can go on the next agenda.
I've always been reluctant to bring anything up, because if I've got something that I think is important that we should be going over, and it's not on the agenda, how do you bring it up? Unless you just throw it out there and, you know, I want a motion to,
We should feel comfortable
you-
enough with each other to be able to do that.
No, you can't do that.
We
okay?
have future agenda items as an agenda item.
Yeah.
Pardon? Say that again?
We have future agenda items as an item on the
okay.
agenda.
Okay, and that would be the time to do it then?
To bring up the topic, but you can't have a full-blown
No,
discussion.
no, no,
Yeah.
no,
No,
to
you
put
said,
it on
yeah.
the agenda for
Yeah,
next week.
topic.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And the reason you can't have a full-blown discussion on an item not on the agenda, again, is it
Because
has
it's
to be
not on the
posted
agenda.
for the public to be here at a
Right.
meeting, knowing that you're going to discuss something
Okay,
on the agenda. That's not, you know, it has to be posted. If you're going to have a full-blown discussion on an item.
okay. That makes sense.
And it needs board support.
I'm
If one person
struggling-
wants to bring something up and the board isn't interested, then
Right.
But if it's.
And I have an example.
Okay.
Where I brought up that I think that we should, through our health insurance, look at self-insuring. And then we had a conversation with Claude, who's always been involved with self-insurance, and he says, yeah, we should be doing that. At what point do I throw that out there, that I'd really like to have us get a quote on self-insurance, where we have to have the board vote on that in order to make it something that we can do, but I can't ever bring it up because it's not on the agenda?
During an insurance discussion.
Which is probably already too late, because we've already had all the quotes and everything coming in. That's when
Or
we
a budget
discuss it.
discussion?
I think that would be a future agenda item. You're looking for a future agenda
Well,
item.
it's on a future agenda item here, but now what do I do with that if I think self-insurance is really something we should look into? Do I have to make a motion that we look at self-insurance as we talk about future agenda items, or how do I get that out there?
Yeah, I think under future agenda items, you would bring up, I'd like, just like you're saying, I'd like to see a discussion of this or something along those lines, and then the rest of the board can discuss it and whether they want it, and then it's decided that it's a future agenda item, and it'll be placed on a future agenda.
Okay.
it'd be more of a consensus than like a motion and a, you know, pass fail.
And with that, now let's pretend it is that topic.
Necessarily.
So
Oh,
would Jim provide any information on why, you know, we currently have what we have, or are we just going to talk amongst ourselves? Or we expect you to provide, you know, why we don't have it and why you wouldn't
As
recommend
part of the
it?
discussion?
Yeah.
Well, I would think
That's the
absolutely
discussion.
they'd be involved, it'd be part of the
Would you?
discussion.
Would you?
But not when it was under future agenda.
Not a
item.
future
No,
agenda
right,
item.
right, but
Right.
when it came up, is it just, are we discussing it because of our experiences with, you know, self-insurance, why we think it's a good idea?
I would-
Or,
I would
is-
I would imagine if it made it to future agenda items and were in consensus that, yes, we wanted more information on it, then Jim would be charged
Then
with
we
that
would, then we
duty
would
to
ask
bring us
For
one
more
of the
information.
administrators to investigate.
okay,
Right.
all right.
I think it's hard to imagine a topic that we wouldn't be involved in, that the board would just be discussing in isolation. I'm not saying there
Because we
wouldn't
don't
be
do
one,
anything.
but yeah.
Sad but true.
No, we're advisory.
I'm sorry, what did he say?
Okay. So
Moving right
we'll
along.
talk about this.
Okay. Good
Anything,
discussion.
anything else on this governance right now from these comments? 'Cause otherwise, we'll move to page 3, establishing expectations. And it was 100% consistently met all indicators But going to the comments. Any discussion on any of the comments? The visiting of the principals here seems to be important to the board, you know, having the school improvement plans.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a good year.
So, page 5, the accountability, again, 100%. Consistently met all the indicators. In the comments, yeah, a lot of variation in the comments. So are there any discussion on any of the comments? And again, we can talk about anything that is really important to someone at a retreat.
One of the comments, it was interesting to me. How do we tell our story to the community?
Good question. It's part of our communications plan and the work that Chrissy's working on. You'll hear more about, you know, our goal around pride, and there's more work going into branding our district, so it's all of those pieces. So we tell our story on Facebook, we tell in a lot of different ways, but as far as like what is our story, you know, we're working on that. Do you have anything to add to that, Christy?
I think that the work that we're doing through the coherence plan is really the foundation of what our story is. That's why we talk about that so much, stay so focused on better place to learn, better place to work, better community. It's so that we can have that consistent platform that we're, you know, speaking on a regular basis. And we're just going to continue to expand that. And the board is definitely a part of that story.
Page 7, responsiveness. 100% consistently met all the indicators. And again, the class size, being responsive to the class size issue, and then to the 4K issue was important. And supporting the administration in the two-person house. Yeah. Any comments? Whereas page 9 is engagement. And 85.7% said consistently met all indicators. So in improving visibility to community members, I think I found it interesting that there's physical visibility and there's visibility in other ways also that board members commented on. So any comments? So what will happen is when we determine, I think next month or early May, we determine a date for our retreat, and then we'll come up with topics for that retreat. And then, obviously, we have one major topic to include in that now from this for the retreat. So,
I think one thing we might want to consider is this last question. Clearly, either it was because it was the last question on the survey and everyone wanted to be done with the survey, or because it was hard to come up with some, I know I didn't have a response. I think that's my period. It wouldn't let me complete it unless I put something in there. Then there's a not sure and no suggestions, and we do fine.
and what's your comment on that?
Shouldn't have told you that secret, right?
I put no suggestions.
I don't know, maybe that question isn't necessary, I don't know.
I'm not big on filling stuff out.
Or people just didn't have a good answer,
Never have been.
so I just thought that was interesting. Now, is there a member, the administration took this survey also?
The directors
Directors, I mean,
collaborated and
okay.
provided one response as
That's what I thought, 'cause that's what we've done before.
a team.
Okay. So obviously then there were 6 responses from board members. So I think one thing we got to figure out is how are we getting to 7? How are we going to get to everyone to fill this out? Because I don't understand how we can have a board evaluation and where the board doesn't fill it out. Anybody have any suggestions on that?
It has to be self-commitment. I mean, I fill it out every year. I despise these things.
I'm not the biggest fan of them either, but.
Yeah. But I go through it because.
I do.
If you're gonna sign up to play on the team, go through all the practices. And this is one of them. We just gotta do it.
Okay.
You can write that down, yeah, that's good.
Good
Play
call.
on the team. Got it, thank you.
It's our own board policy, so that's,
Debbie, do you have any thoughts?
I don't.
No. Well, I think that's something we should explore, is how to get everyone to fill out the form. Because you were on the committee that helped put this together, right?
I was, yeah, with Jeff and Janet.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you expecting everybody would fill it out then? I mean, knowing, maybe it's difficult to fill out. I don't find it easy either. You have to slug through it. But, you know, if you guys, if you consider that it'd be something you would want to do, I mean, you're recommending it for us, so.
Maybe there's a format change that needs to be made, I don't know. I mean, I know when this was done, it was done to specifically drive responses. That's why those questions were put in there, to get feedback, because in the past, we would do this and we wouldn't have feedback. So now we have a tool that's specifically in place to drive feedback, and to Alan's point, which isn't always fun. It was like, ugh, really? So I think that's something that needs to be addressed.
okay. We'll move on to 8C, Treasurer's Report is available in the Board Docs Library. 9B, Board Liaison Reports. Are there any reports tonight? Okay. 9C, School and Community Engagement Visits. Did anyone have any visits the last 2 weeks?
I'm engaged in spring break.
Yeah,
I don't.
okay. Then we're moving on to item 10, closed session. I'm looking for a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Sub 1, Sub D, for District Administrator Performance Standards Evaluation, and Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, to discuss land purchase. And this is an action item. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't hear. Did you have it first?
One of us, too.
Mr. Nielsen can have it.
Mr. Nielsen.
We were both right there.
Any discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Larson,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Evans,
Aye.
Mr. Nielsen?
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Aye.
And I say yes.
Motion carries. We're in closed session at 7:10. We'll take it at 8:35. There was no action taken in closed session. And school board member debriefing, item 11. Are there any comments? No comments tonight. Okay. Item 12, future agenda items. We have the Countrydale Elementary School presentation on April 10th, early college credit and Start College Now request approvals, April 10th, academic and technical scholarship recipient approvals, April 10th, the 2019-20 health and dental insurance discussion, April 10th, the 2019-20 wage increase for non-represented staff, April 10th, a Friends of Franklin recognition on April 24th, and the National School Board Convention Report, April 24th. And I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Is this where we bring up the self-insurance for the health?
Yes.
So that would be part of the discussion that's happening on.
Yeah, he's going to be probably reviewing the January renewal
Yes, and that's.
for this year,
Mhm.
because insurance is up in January, and I'm assuming he's going to be discussing
Correct.
what's happening not January, July.
Mhm.
What's going to happen this July? When we brought it up before,
You
well,
will-
we can discuss it.
You will be
We can
able
discuss
to
it.
discuss your
Yes.
desire to self-insure under that agenda item.
Okay.
Good luck.
You look so confused.
Good luck on that. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Debbie said she made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion by Mrs. Larson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Witkowski. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:37.